Секса у нас нет, и мы категорически против этого.
There is no sex in the USSR. Everybody's familiar with this catchphrase. And what about murderers, sex offenders, and the like? Vladimir Mikhailovich Ionesyan was real enough. 6 victims in the span of just 2.5 weeks, 5 dead, 3 of them children. He's not called the first Soviet serial killer for nothing. The 1960s was a time of active progress for the USSR. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human to journey into outer space. The country's economy was soaring. A bright future was at hand. Few people knew it was also the time of a hard crackdown on crime. Of course, the USSR government kept it hush-hush. So when the news of the brutal murder of the 12-year-old Konstantin Sobolev came to light, the general public was shocked. It happened on December 20th, 1963, in a brand-new Khrushchevka apartment block on Baltiyskaya Street. Khrushchevkas were low-cost 3 to 5-story apartment buildings erected throughout the country in the early 60s. It was very easy for a stranger to roam such grounds unnoticed. And who would suspect a public utility employee? Open up, Mosgaz! 9-year-old Vladimir Teplov opened the door without second thought. The doors in Khrushchevkas were equipped with neither security chains nor peepholes. And why should a Soviet child be afraid of a Moscow gas company worker? You alone? The man asked in a hushed tone. No, everybody's home, the boy blurted out. Cautiously, the man entered the apartment. Where's everybody then, boy? In the next room, said Vladimir. In fact, he was referring to his 70-year-old grandma. His mom and dad were absent. The boy was startled by a stranger and lied on impulse. The tall, strange man checked the gas stove and left. A minute later, he knocked on the door again. Sorry, I forgot the matches, he said. When the man knocked the 3rd time, Vladimir got really scared and ignored him. The man visited many flats that day. He entered the apartments, pretended to check the gas pipes, the stoves, asked the tenants to sign some papers, and left. The Mosgaz employee was looking for an apartment with easy prey. Alone and helpless, Konstantin Sobolev was waiting for a furniture delivery. Open up, Mosgaz! Sobolev opened the door. The stranger stepped over the threshold, closed the door, and whipped out a tourist axe. So the boy in the toilet was like this, his arms crossed before his face. He was trying to protect himself. A murder of a child? In Moscow, the capital of the USSR, that was unheard of. The police arrived fast. The flat quickly became crowded with high-ranking officers, including generals. There at the crime scene, a general got nauseous. He had to step outside to have some air and regain his composure. Konstantin Sobolev's mother was shocked by the gruesome sight of her son's lifeless body. The witness claimed that she lost her mind. She left Moscow and never crossed the threshold of the cursed apartment again. Meanwhile, the police made good progress. First, they created a list of stolen objects. The boy's sweater, trousers, 60 rubles, a bottle of cologne Shipper, and cheap sunglasses. Money was money, and 60 rubles equal to an average monthly salary. But other items made no sense. Lots of neighbors were questioned. Many of them reported a strange, tall man with a crooked nose who claimed to be an employee of Mosgaz on a routine mission to check the gas equipment. The man spoke in a quiet voice and was hiding his face under a big Ushanka hat, and an expensive one at that. Finally, the investigators got to Vladimir Teplov. Having seen the man up close and not once, but twice, Vladimir managed to get a very good look of him. It was thanks to Teplov that Feinstein was able to create the first composite sketch of the killer. Sometime before that, a young couple was walking through the newly opened GUM, the main department store of Moscow. 26-year-old Vladimir Ionesyan promised his lover, 21-year-old Alevtina Dmitrieva, an expensive fur coat. Baffled by the price, Ionesyan promised to buy it next time and purchased a tourist tax instead. Vladimir Ionesyan met Alevtina Dmitrieva while they were working together at the Orenburg Musical Comedy Theatre. Ionesyan, a young tenor who always felt unjustly pushed into supporting roles, falls for the beautiful but inexperienced dancer. When Dmitrieva gets fired from the theatre, Ionesyan uses the chance to win her over. He concocts a romantic lie. He was an undercover KGB official, he said. He could make things happen. Young and gullible Dmitrieva took the bait. They moved to Moscow, a city of promise. Ionesyan told his lover that he'd soon get a sizable inheritance from his deceased uncle, that soon he'd break his cover and use his connections to make Dmitrieva a true prima ballerina at the Bolshoi Theatre in Moscow. But before any of that happens, they have to lie low and rent a cheap room to avoid undue attention. After all, miracles take time. Unable to find a job and unwilling to divulge his true status, Ionesyan found another means to pamper Dmitrieva. He purchased a tourist tax and turned into a murderer. Having claimed his first victim, Ionesyan told Dmitrieva he'd gotten a special assignment in Ivanovo, a city 200 miles away from Moscow. They arrived on December 25th, and Mosgaz got to work. He wasted no time. That day he claimed 2 lives. One of his victims was a 12-year-old boy, Mikhail Kuleshov. Ionesyan stole the boy's jacket, a pullover, 2 cheap pens, and several bonds. Again, mere trifles. His next victim was a 74-year-old woman. All Mosgaz took was a pocket flashlight and 70 kopecks. Emboldened by his feats, Ionesyan attacked a 15-year-old Galina Petropavlovskaya. But this time, murder wasn't enough. Ionesyan turned to sexual assault. Having raped the girl, he left her for dead with multiple head wounds. This time, the loot was more abundant. Dmitrieva would love the fluffy shawl and 90 rubles. Petropavlovskaya survived the encounter. Sofia Feinstein rushed to Ivanovo. When she produced a composite sketch of Mosgaz, the poor girl fainted. It was their man all right. Meanwhile, Ionesyan told Dmitrieva that their lives were in danger. Reportedly, the girl noticed bloodstains on his clothes. Ionesyan told her he had to neutralize a foreign spy. They had to flee to Moscow, and fast. They departed right away. These 3 attacks came as a shock to the local community. Ivanovo was so far from Moscow, the locals didn't even know about the Mosgaz murderer. After all, it was not in the news. But now the whole USSR came abuzz with the gruesome gossip. A serial killer was on the loose. A serial killer targeting children. That was unheard of. No matter how hush-hush the police investigation was, the party learned about it too. The officials were not happy. The case of the Mosgaz murderer was given a special status. Nikita Khrushchev himself ordered the killer to be caught, and fast. That was the order given to the Minister of Internal Affairs, Vadim Tikhonov, the very Tikhonov who introduced the usage of metallic handcuffs and rubber batons to the USSR police. Unaware that an intensive manhunt was underway, Ionesyan struck again. On December 28th, passers-by noticed a suspicious man watching the children at a local ski ring. The man followed one of them home and rang the doorbell. He got scared off. My older sister was at home too. Then he went to another section of the building and up to the 9th floor again. 11-year-old Alexander Lisevets lived there. Poor Sasha wasn't that lucky. He was alone. Having killed the boy, Ionesyan tried to force the one door in the flat that was locked. Apparently he thought all the valuables were stored there. Failing to get the door open, all the murderer took was a shaving machine, a flask of cologne, and a pack of colored pencils. After the New Year's celebration, Ionesyan took a few days off before striking again. On January 8, 1964, pretending to be an employee of the housing department, he knocked on the door of the 46-year-old Maria Yermakova. It was Yermakova's downstairs neighbor that called the police. The terrified woman reported blood dripping down from the ceiling. After all, Hrushchevkas were not built to last. The police noticed a missing TV set right away. They found the manual for the Star 3 TV set that was marked with its serial number. The police searched high and low, and finally Lady Luck smiled on them. First, they happened upon the neighbor of Ionesyan. The woman told them that Korenkova, an elderly woman from the same apartment block, was housing a nephew with his young wife. Only the nephew was clearly from Caucasus. He spoke with an accent and had a crooked nose. On top of that, just the day before he appeared with a brand new TV set and sold it to another neighbor for a ridiculously low price. An odd guy indeed. The TV set was the Star 3 they were looking for. It all fit. The nephew and his wife happened to be away. Korenkova let the policeman set up an ambush, and the wait began. At about 10 p.m., somebody opened the door. The policeman knocked the stranger on the ground. They were surprised to see a young, startled girl. It was Alevtina Dmitrieva. The girl refused to talk. Her lips were sealed with an honorable oath before the fearless major of the KGB. Eventually, realizing they were real police officers, she proudly announced her lover's name. She also revealed that he was on a secret mission in another city. Dmitrieva was adamantly silent until the officers produced an unfinished letter. It was penned by Ionesyan and addressed to his cousin. He suggested joining him in Kazan. Like, the girls in Kazan were great and that the cousin would have the time of his life there. Dmitrieva was furious. She was supposed to join her beloved in Kazan, but only a week later. Ionesyan had plenty of time to party there. In a jealous fit, she told the police all they wanted to know. What happened next could be straight out of a spy film. The police conducted a casting session among the policewomen searching for Dmitrieva's lookalike. Upon finding one, they enhanced the likeness with makeup. Then the agent got on the train to Kazan. Of course, she was traveling in the company of undercover policemen. At the Kazan station, Ionesyan glanced at the agent, beamed and waved his hand. The setup worked. He rushed to the train to meet his faux lover when his wrist was handcuffed to the grab bar. There was nowhere to run. The policeman searched Ionesyan and found a tourist axe. The final nail in the coffin was driven by Dmitry Yaroshevsky. The boy recognized the dreaded Mosgaz in a flash. Other witnesses confirmed it as well. The police made it just before Khrushchev's deadline. Reportedly, Khrushchev demanded to see Ionesyan in person. Casting a sour glance at the prisoner, he ordered to be done with the man in 2 weeks. Who was Ionesyan really? Back in Orenburg, he was a married man. He had a kid. On top of that, he was a man of culture. From as early as his studies in the Tbilisi Conservatoire, Ionesyan complained about his poor mental health. Namely, it was the very reason he dropped out of the Conservatoire. Despite these complaints, he was convicted for evading his service in the USSR army. Ionesyan claimed that his medical records were destroyed before his very eyes by the drafting officer. On top of that, he was convicted for 2 petty thefts. I am a terrible person now, but was a very good man in the past. That's all Ionesyan had to say for himself. It's unclear how much Dmitrieva was involved. Everything pointed to her being merely a gullible kid, but she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Spending his last days on the death row in the infamous Butyrka prison, Ionesyan pestered the inmates and the guards with his incessant singing. The tenor was given his final performance. Vladimir Ionesyan was executed at 11 p.m. on January 31st, 1964. He went down in history as the USSR serial killer #1. Was this the spotlight he was seeking for?